Hello everybody, welcome back to the ASUS YouTube channel once again. This is JJ, and we're bringing you part 2 of our coverage on the brand new NVIDIA GeForce 680 graphics card. So if you guys checked out our unboxing, we told you that we would be keeping all the real high-level details regarding the design, the feature, the functionalities of the card for this overview video, and that's what we're going to be doing. Essentially, here is covering a lot more in terms of a deep dive into the brand new design, features, and functionality of what the ASUS NVIDIA GeForce GTX 680 has to offer. So for you guys that are familiar, with graphics cards, this is actually an entirely new architecture. So this graphics card is based off of what's referred to internally as the Kepler architecture. So NVIDIA's been working on this for quite some time, and this now replaces the previous existing Fermi architecture. So Fermi existed for the GTX or GT 400 series as well as for the 500 series, and it was an outstanding architecture that really brought along a lot of advanced new designs to the realm of graphics cards, both in the mid-range and in the high end. We saw really impressive DirectX 11 performance, an entirely new generation of performance for SLI scaling relative to 2, 3, and even 4-way configurations. We had tessellation performance that was outstanding, and we had a high degree of overclockability, and a lot of other really improved aspects, in terms of image quality, whether it was things like anti-aliasing technologies that were incorporated, the continued refinement that they made within the actual driver stack, and a lot of other focus points for them. For this generation, they're really looking at extending all those key points that they laid the groundwork with the Fermi architecture and extending them further, whether it was relative to the sheer gaming performance of the card, GPU compute performance, which was really prevalent within the CUDA architecture that they had within Fermi, or other metrics that all indicate to provide to you a certain level of experience to the product's design. So for this generation, the big focus points for them really centered around a faster, smoother, and richer experience for the product relative to each one of the driving parameters for those. So for faster, one of the key aspects that we have for this generation of card is that internally the entire actual redesign is now been bumped up considerably. So this is a lot more complex card. We're taking a look at 680 is over 3.5 billion transistors that we're talking about in this package design. So really impressive when you think about the amount of work that they've put in here to give you that level of performance, but in an entirely much more efficient design, but while extending the performance. When you talk about the performance envelope, those 3.5 billion transistors, they're getting approximately about 2x the performance within the same wattage marker as previous generation cards. So that's really outstanding when you take a look at it from that perspective. And with that SMX architecture that they now have in place, it's really allowing them to go ahead and extend the performance for a lot of factors, whether it's with texturing, geometry processing, or a lot of the more complex elements in terms of what's required to really drive a high quality gameplay experience in modern generation games. Now, that's really a lot of the high-level design stuff, and there's even more of that detailing out there that definitely you can take a look at the technical media review sites that are out there that'll give you more fleshed out information if you're looking for that, as well as definitely you can check out GeForce.com, and they can really deep dive into the improvements that they've made on the CUDA core designs. Here we're taking a look at on this card. The CUDA core count is even higher than in previous generations. We're looking at 1536 versus I believe the GTX 580 which was 512. So in a lot of ways they've extended that. But relative to you guys in the real world perspective, what are we taking a look at? For the memory and for the GPU alone, we're also talking significantly faster frequencies. Both the memory and the GPU are running at gigahertz clock speeds. So we're talking about a baseline frequency for the 680 of approximately 1 gigahertz or 1006 is what their base clock is. And the reason why I refer to it as a base clock is one of the aspects that they've introduced to go ahead and give you a faster level of experience or performance on this card is a technology that they're coining GPU Boost. So GPU Boost is very similar to Intel's turbo technology that they've now had for a couple of generations. And what this means is that when the card is able to work within a predefined power target envelope, it can actually dynamically overclock itself and extend its actual clock frequency to higher levels. So take for example, if we jump into an actual GPU Z log that will show you, we can actually see the frequency go up actually in game. And in NVIDIA's testing, under the most optimal situations, you could actually see upwards of 1.1, even a little bit more than that in terms of 1.1 gigahertz for that GPU clock speed. So this is really an outstanding level of performance you're getting before even approaching actually overclocking the card with, let's say, like our GPU tweak utility and even extending the performance further. So it's essentially performance for free. On average, what you're going to generally be looking at is probably somewhere between about 1050 to about 1085 is what NVIDIA is approximating that you're going to get for this GPU boost. So let's quickly take a look at the actual GPU-Z log and see if we can actually show you some of the scaling as it occurs real time. So we're going to go ahead and open up this document here. And here we can see, let's go ahead and maybe make the font a little bit bigger. So we can see here in terms of the actual GPU core clock, we're at 324 megahertz, which when we're looking here at our GPU-Z, we can see that's our idle frequency, right? But what we want to go ahead and take a look at is what happens to the card when we go ahead and actually enter gameplay. So here we let it actually sit idle for a period of time, and then we can all of a sudden see that we've ramped it up now. So here we're getting ready to have the game initialize. So an initial 3D load has now been placed in, and we can see that we've reached that quote-unquote base clock, right? But then once we actually pass that base clock and we go ahead and enter an actual game engine, we can see here the card's actually ramped up past its rated specification, where here it's actually working at a little bit short of 1.1 gigahertz, 1084 in terms of the actual frequency. And we can see here, look, it even got just shy of actually 1.1 gigahertz, 1097. So this is actually showing you the dynamic GPU boost occurring real time. And this will modulate, of course, depending on the TDP that's present in terms of the load. Now keep in mind this technology has really been centered towards actual real world gaming. You know, whether you're jumping into something like Crysis 2, you know, Need for Speed Run, Battlefield 3, The Witcher 2, whatever it might be that you're trying out, that's where you're going to actually see these performance increases. If you throw something synthetic on there, you know, something that's just designed to stress the TDP, for one, you could potentially be compromising the integrity of the card and damage the card because you're running TDP levels that aren't to be designed to be handled not only by the thermal assembly, but by the board design itself. But the TDP will block that from increasing. So if you run something like OCCT or Firmark, which isn't advised, you're not going to be able to see these type of actual metrics. But definitely under your normal gameplay situation, you're going to be able to get this increase in performance. So that's pretty cool to see that that's just essentially a free performance increase before actually tweaking anything on the card. So that gives you one of the kind of key metrics in terms of how they're extending that faster kind of gameplay experience. Now, moving past this, taking in consideration some of the other new options that they're introducing that float into what they are coining their smoother gameplay experience, they have a lot of really cool stuff here. So as you guys know, one of the really key value points of actually an NVIDIA solution is the quality and the maturity of the NVIDIA driver stack and a lot of the improvements that they bring with that. Now they released previously in the 500 series drivers a really advanced anti-aliasing technology called FXAA, which allowed you to really get a higher level of image quality without necessarily having the same impacting level as MSAA. And now for this generation, they're taking it even further with a new type of anti-aliasing implementation that's based off of the groundwork that's laid in game engines with FXAA, with TXAA. The great thing about TXAA is that you have the benefit of essentially getting 8x MS multi-sampling anti-aliasing performance, but essentially only at about 2x the rate. So while this card is really focused at QHD gaming, high resolution, so for guys that are looking at 1080p or 2560 base resolution gaming, anti-aliasing, tessellation, HDR, bloom, all those really advanced image quality effects, you can really kind of take it to that even next level, even giving you better image quality, better clarity, better definition within your lines to really handle any type of aliasing that's occurring with the imagery, but without impacting the performance as much. And definitely NVIDIA is doing a great job of working with the game developers to see this get further implemented in more titles that are coming to market. Like I'm really excited about Borderlands 2, MechWarrior Online, they're both going to be taking advantage of this, as well as the upcoming Unreal Engine. So you can definitely know that that alone in itself is going to mean that you're going to be seeing this in a lot of game engines. So that's a pretty cool technology. Now, something that you can readily take advantage of that they're introducing is a great new technology. It's called adaptive vertical sync. So as you guys know, kind of vertical sync is the bane of a lot of problems for gamers when you talk about fluidity or gameplay experience. A lot of times it's something that you want to go ahead and enable and turn on, right? So like if, we go to, let's say, our NVIDIA control panel, we're going to have different options that are available to us within the NVIDIA control panel in terms of, anti-aliasing options like that brand new FXXA option, or things like, our vertical sync. The problem when you consider things like with vertical sync is that with the vertical sync implementation, it works great when your monitor works in that same refresh rate and your frame rate is exceeding the refresh rate that's capable of your monitor. But when vertical sync is actually enabled and you drop below the actual refresh rate, you can actually get stuttering. It can impact the actual latency and the overall responsefulness. So what NVIDIA has done here is implemented an adaptive VSync, which will actually work by either enabling itself or disabling itself, depending essentially on the frame rate. So if you drop below, let's say your 60 frames, vertical sync will essentially be disabled. And the reason why that's an advantage is that vertical sync has to half itself. So that can actually impact and artificially reduce performance. But when you essentially go back up to your peak frame rate, it'll go ahead and essentially be re-enabled so that you can go ahead and minimize any type of on-screen tearing from occurring. So it's a really great option in terms of giving you kind of the best of both worlds. And of course, you're still going to have to consider that if you want the best performance in terms of having vertical sync on and not necessarily capping your frame rate, you're still going to want to look at 3D capable monitors like our VG series that give you 120 Hertz support, so that you can even have a higher threshold than the baseline of most monitors, which is going to be 60 Hertz. But a very cool technology that they've implemented, helping to give you a smoother gameplay experience. Now, in terms of their richer experience that they've incorporated, this ties into a lot of different metrics. One of the really cool things actually about the card is that there's a new display output configuration that they've designed on here, where you've got essentially 2 dual-link DVI ports, an HDMI port, and a display port. What this is actually allowing you to have is the flexibility of driving actually up to 4 panels. The cool thing about being able to drive 4 panels is that it's not just focused at, let's say, productivity, which would be great in terms of somebody that's in a professional work environment where they want the ability to run maybe a workflow, have email, web browser, different things like that open all at one time. But for gamers, it now means this generation of card has one really cool benefit over the previous generation, where I can do multiple monitors on one single card, or I can run 3D on one single card. Now that was able to be done, but if you're talking about 3D Vision Surround, you had to be looking at 2 GPUs. With this GPU, I have the performance to be able to run high definition gaming across multiple panels and still have outstanding performance. But the kicker is that NVIDIA has also introduced an accessory display. So you could imagine actually having 3 displays running surround-based gaming, but then still having that 4th panel set up there where you could have maybe a walkthrough for the game that you're playing. Maybe if you're running, Windows 8, the consumer preview, you could have that open there where you have the Metro interface giving you, your feedback, your Twitter, YouTube, whatever it is that you want. There's a lot of flexibility of being able to have, your game engine driven on one panel, and then also have it something else being driven on that quote-unquote accessory panel. So that's really cool in terms of giving you a richer experience, especially off of just having one card. So the flexibility that's offered there is really nice. Another aspect that they've incorporated here is they have a brand new physics compiler that they're introducing here that's working off of the brand new architecture that's present here, and really is extending the physics performance engine to even be more realistic, more immersive, and be able to have more kind of residual collateral interaction with your environment and the characters in games. And they've already kind of showcased some of this with the upcoming Borderlands 2. That's going to be coming out. It's going to be taking advantage of this engine as well as other game engines. So that's a cool technology that they're introducing with this generation of cards here. In addition to that, one really cool one for you guys out there that are, video buffs and really appreciate the kind of more GPU compute-centric parts of the card's design and multimedia aspects card of the design, is that NVIDIA has incorporated a brand new H.2.64 fixed function encoder built onto the graphics card. In previous generations, this was directly executed via the CUDA cores that were on the car. And while it gave you a great level of performance, it also required more power, wasn't necessarily as efficient as other types of design implementations. With this design implementation, they're actually able to give you a really high level of performance. And a baseline example here that I just want to go ahead and reference that I was really impressed by is the fact that it's going to be able to offer high quality HD-based encoding, but real time. So an example would be taking, a 1080p video, which is 30 frames, 16 minutes long, and being able to encode that in only 2 minutes. So for you guys that are out there that aren't necessarily always focused at just the performance metrics of what a card gives you, this gives you a much richer experience of what you can have capable with the card. And in addition to that, this encoder engine supports, like I said, H.264 and all the base profiles that are required for all the standards you might be really interested in, like Blu-ray, stereoscopic support for you guys that are interested in 3D, and actually even for you guys that are working towards the future for setting up a really nice high-end workstation, you even have onboard H.2.6 encoding support for 4K resolutions. So if you want to define high-quality masters and then be able to archive them down into smaller work sizes, or be able to have that flexibility, our actual internal editors here all have their system setups with GTX 570s because it allowed them to do a lot of really good accelerated work within the Adobe Creative Suite series of products. This would be, a really sensible upgrade path because it allows them even better performance, lower power consumption, and better efficiency. So we kind of get all the metrics that we're looking for in a quality upgrade in terms of our product's design. So that's something that's also very, very cool in terms of extending that quote-unquote richer gameplay experience. So on top of that, when we're taking a look at just some of the other avenues of what's interesting in terms of the card's design that, we're always taking a look at when we take a look at brand new graphics cards, is NVIDIA has definitely made some tweaks and some changes to the layout of the card. As we noted in our unboxing, we have a brand new power design layout that they've gone ahead and done for a couple of reasons in terms of power efficiency, so that they can have this high quality phase design incorporated in here, but also gave them a little bit more design room to go ahead and incorporate a better fan design with dampening and a heat pipe implementation. So the cool thing about that is that, for one, it's not going to take up additional space, but the efficiency that they have now allows them, as we noted before, to give you dual 6 pins as opposed to having to have an 8 and 8 pin. So as we noted before, the TDP on this card is only 195 watts. So very low power consumption. That's great even for multi-GPU users where you're not going to have to necessarily have these much beefier, even more expensive power supplies. So that really aligns great with considering the efficiency. Now, in terms of the actual thermal assembly design, which has entirely been revamped to a new advanced heat pipe design, when we're taking a look at temperature performance is really solid with the card. Idle operation is going to be generally somewhere between about 30 C to about 32 C. We're going to go ahead and jump back into our GPU Z-log and take a look at some of the actual temperature levels for what we'd be looking under gameplay load. And this is considering also that the card was in that GPU boost clock frequency environment. So here we can see, here's the core clock, right, of 324. Here we have the corresponding GPU temperature, about 30 C, right? So as we're going to go ahead and move down, we're going to get down to here, and we can see that the card is, going from about 64, 65, 70, 73, 74, and that's about usually where we were seeing it. I mean, of course, depending on the game engine that you're looking at, you're going to have variances within it, and it's not always necessarily going to be pegged at that. But the great thing is that we're running actually past even the rated quote-unquote base clock speeds. But in terms of the overall acoustics of the card, I mean, for being essentially the world's fastest graphics cards, I think the acoustics are outstanding. It's very lightly audible, and they've made some changes to the actual design type to go ahead and have it have a cleaner, smoother sound to it, so that it's a little bit easier to listen to, and in a way, a well-insulated chassis, you're going to probably almost be in an inaudible environment. So I don't think for the most part it's something you're going to really consciously need to be worried about, and especially for the power and performance that the card offers. I think that the overall thermal solution is quite solid. But definitely, as always, make sure to stick tuned to our channel for when we show you our non-reference designs, which I think are going to probably be taking it to a whole nother level. But you can see here, overall, we were pretty much pegged at about 75 to 76, 77 on the top end. But I found even in some game engines, I was actually considerably underneath that, where I was looking much closer to between about 60 to about 67. So that was really kind of what the most strenuous when we're talking about DirectX 11, HDR, high resolution, you know, and really try to push the game engine to give us a high level of quality. So like Crysis 2 with all the expansion packs, Battlefield 3, Witcher 2, those are the kind of temperature metrics that you're going to be looking at in regards to that. So with those items, that kind of gives you a little bit more of a overview and breakdown regarding the actual card in terms of the new technologies that NVIDIA's introduced here. There's definitely even more to go into, like I said, where you can definitely check out any one of the technology sites that are out there that are going to be covering this card now on launch day, or you can make sure to head over to nvidia.com, and they're going to have some great detailing on the brand new architecture and the features and the benefits of this card as well. For you guys that are interested in even more performance-oriented content, definitely stick tuned, because we're going to have some really cool stuff regarding SLI, where we're going to be showing you the scaling, going up to actually 3 cards, and showing you what's the performance potential of Kepler when we get this strapped onto an X79 platform and we start to throw it, you know, high resolution 2560, 1440, and we take a look at some of the current generation games and how the performance looks like. So as always, if you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, anything that you guys are interested in knowing, or just want to leave us any feedback relative to the video, make sure that drop that there in the comment section, or as always, head over to our Facebook and Twitter channels. You can drop us a line there. So thank you. As always, for you guys that are interested, we just want to go ahead and notate actually which components we're utilizing here on our test bed. So starting from the top, in terms of the power supply, we've got Antec's Gold Series 750 watt power supply, their high current pro model. So that's 90% power efficiency. Great thing, as you notice pretty much through the duration of this video, is that this thing pretty much runs very silent when it's under minimal load, and even when we're actually under higher levels of load, it's going to maintain a quiet level of operation. Board-wise, we're running our X79 P9 X79 Deluxe board, so that's an awesome baseline board for high-end configuration, especially when considering one GTX680 or even more. If you're considering 2-way or 3-way SLI support, this board's going to have you covered. We've got, of course, our brand new ASUS NVIDIA GeForce GTX680 graphics card here. We've got a 3930 Intel Core i7 second generation K-series part. And cooling wise, we have XigmaTek's awesome XigmaTek Prime CPU cooler. So this is a really, really nice CPU air cooler that's really quiet. It's got these awesome rubber silicon grommets to go ahead and absorb vibration. You can go ahead and have a dual mount fan design, especially if you want to overclock the system. It's going to give you a lot of cooling potential, but be really quiet. Memory wise, we've got Patriot's Xtreme Division 4 1866 quad channel kit running on this board, so that's giving us some great memory to work with there. SSD wise, we've got Patriot's Wildfire series high performance SSD 120 gigabyte model running here, essentially our storage bed as far as that goes. And then of course here we've got our upcoming QHD panel, not yet on the market, but we're showing it off to you guys, letting you see some awesome 2560 by 1440 resolution. Love for you guys that are interested in that. And of course, peripheral wise, we've got the awesome Cyborg series from Cytec, where we've got our R.A.T 7 and we've got our Cyborg keyboard as well. So that'll be annotated there in the notes for you guys that want to reference that information as well. And as always, if you guys have any questions, drop us a line.